Quadratic equations. Do you hear me? I've just clicked on record. Yes, I'm recording. So we're solving quadratic equations. And how do we do that? By factoring. Once we have factored this trinomial by a method that we have learned, then we set each mini factor, as I call them, equal to 0, and we solve, and we're done. There's also a couple word problems we have to go over. Now, the easiest type of equation that you will find the entire semester is coming up. And that's the one, for example, that is already factored. So let me also say something else. When it says solve, you need to solve for the variable, either x, p, y, whatever it is. It's a number, whatever the answer is. If it just says factor, then please just factor. Don't solve it or don't make anything up. Factor the problem and you're done. So solving, and let me make this up. Let's say you have x plus 2 times x minus 3 equals 0. So if you hear this, if you are listening to this recording, listen very carefully. If the equation is already set equal to 0 with 2 parentheses, this is what is called factored form. This is factored form already. Somebody factored it for you. Do you hear me? Somebody factored it for you. You do not have to multiply here, go in circles. All you have to do is set each mini factor, as I call them, mini factor equal to 0 and solve for the variable. So by mini factor, I mean the x plus 2 is one factor. You set that equal to 0. And x minus 3 is another factor, and you set that equal to 0 as well. So these are your two mini factors, and now you solve for x. Linear equation, bring the 2 over, and you get x equals negative 2. Here you add 3, and you get x equals 3. Guess what? Done you are. Life is good. That's all you have to do. It is already in factored form. And how do I know it's in factored form? You have 2 parentheses. Do you hear me? Now pay attention. Why is it in factored form? Because it is already set equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, we have to multiply. Are you ready for next one? And I picked this out of the book here. I get too excited about this stuff. Number 24 on page 362 is 3a plus 1 times 4a minus 5, and that is equal to 0. So what do you do? Solve for a twice, so the 3a plus 1 would be one factor, and the 4a minus 5 is another factor. Now, what do I see on the test? Oh, students are multiplying. 12a squared plus minus 15a plus 4a minus 5. And guess what? Then they factored again. Well, what do you get? The 3a plus 1 and the 4a minus 5. That's called you're going in circles and getting nowhere. You don't have to do that. Solve for a, and you get a is negative 1/3 Bring a 1 over, divide by 3, and a is 5 over 4. Done you are. We're going to do one more because here comes the important one. Pay attention. Number 25. X times x plus 4 times 10x minus 3 equals 0. How many factors do I have in this case?
3.
I have 3 factors. Factors you can see with the parentheses, and there's a times in between that we don't write anymore. X times x plus 4. So the 3 factors that you have here, one factor is just plain simple x. So that factor needs to be set equal to 0. Guess what? There's your first answer already. X equals 0. Set each factor equal to 0. Then you have x plus 4 equals 0. And that means x is negative 4. And then you set 10x minus 3 equal to 0. And you get x equals 3 over 10. So in this case, we have 3 solutions. Now, really what we're doing visually, and I have to say 25 was not a quadratic equation because we have 3 answers. You will talk about this way more in detail in college algebra, but I just want to let you know, really what we're doing when we're solving a quadratic equation, if you were to graph one, and don't worry, you don't have to do that, they are called parabolas, -2, let's say 3 is over here, and they look like U's. This is a bad one, but when you're solving, you're really doing nothing else than trying to figure out where does the parabola cross the x-axis. That's really what we're doing. The parabola, if you were to graph it, crosses the x-axis at -2 and at 3. That's what that means, solving. I just want to point that out. So everybody good? Something like 25. 3 factors, you get 3 answers. And just real quick, again, some of us are visual learners, so we have a -4 here, we have a 0, and we have a 310 over here. So this is what is called a polynomial to the 3rd degree, and it's crossing the x-axis at 3 places. If you had 4, they are called in college algebra zeros, then you had 4 places where the graph crosses the x-axis. Again, that's something you learn in college algebra. Okay, so these were equal to 0. All you have to do is set each factor equal to 0. Now, of course, that is not always the case. Let's take a look at 29. So 29 is x squared plus 6x minus 27 equals 0. Let's go through all the steps. The first step would be when you're solving an equation like that, you set it equal to 0. We can disregard the first step because it's already equal to 0. But if it wasn't the case, you need to set it equal to 0. Then the second step is to factor the left side by the methods that we have learned. Factor left side, and then the third step would be, we are at the point what we did before. You set each mini factor equal to 0 and solve. Okay, that's basically it. 3 steps. First step, don't have to worry about it. Second step, this is a trinomial with a leading coefficient 1. We have no GCF. we need two numbers when we multiply give us negative 27, but at the same time positive 6 when we add them. 9 and negative 3. Now you can do AC method and split that. I'm going to save a little bit time because the leading coefficient is 1. All you have to do is put a 9 here and a minus 3 in there. So we factored it, and now we're at the point what we did first. We said each mini factor equal to 0. We get x equals negative 9 and x equals 3. So it's really just one step further of what we learned before. We learned how to factor. And now you just have to set each factor equal to 0 because we're solving. Let's take a look at 34. 5x squared equals 7x. This is also a quadratic equation, but this quadratic equation has only two factors. Maybe factoring is not two factors, I meant two terms. Maybe the factoring is easier here. Well, let's find out. What's the first step? Right, it's not equal to 0. So you want to have it in the form where the x squared term's positive. That means we got to subtract the 7x. 5x squared minus 7x equals 0. Let's say that's on the test. How do you factor it? All you can do here is, this is a GCF problem where the greatest common factor is an x. There's nothing else we can do. So we got to factor out an x. Is it all the rain? It's supposed to rain tomorrow, Thursday. Factor out an x, which leaves us with what? 5x minus 7. We divide by x. Now each factor needs to be set equal to 0, so your first factor is just x. X equals 0. Done. And then the second one is 5x minus 7. Add 7. Let me show you all the way. Divide by 5. X equals 7/5. Guys, you with me? Yeah, you say that now. Now, how about a problem? Hold on. How about this one? I'm making it up. X squared plus 2x equals 35. I hope it works. Solve. Solve. The very first step is you got to set it equal to 0. The 35 has got to go to the other side. which gives you x squared plus 2x minus 35 equals 0. Oh, what did I say to C as an answer? 17.5. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, now we got a factor. So the leading coefficient is 1. Which two numbers multiply to be negative 35 and add to 2? And no, it's not prime.
7, negative 5.
7 and a negative 5. X plus 7, x minus 5 equals 0, and the rest is your story. Once you have it in factored form, you're going to set each factor equal to 0. X plus 7 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And it's not prime. X equals negative 7 and x equals 5. And something else that just occurred to me. I always say, especially in college algebra, the tests in intermediate algebra are made up by a committee. So everybody who's taken college intermediate algebra, basically we're all taking the same test. Different numbers could be, but the test is the same. Now in college algebra, everybody makes up their own tests. I always say, my tests are like a scavenger hunt. I ask you something on the first page, but probably on page 3 you find the answer there somewhere, if you know what you're looking for. So if you are to be asked to find an example of a difference of 2 cubes, just go through the problem. You have the factor, a cube. It's right there in front of you. Just saying. It's somewhere in the test. Okay, what else? Here we go. Here we go. Now, let me give you 2 different problems. One more time, we're making sure that everybody knows what's going on. X plus 7 times x minus 4 equals 0. That's number 22. And number 43 is y minus 3 times y plus 4 equals 8. Kind of 2 of the same. The left-hand side looks very similar. You have 2 binomials, but with 22 it's equal to 0. With 43 it's equal to 8. And here is where students get it wrong. 22, I hope you're listening to me. 22, it's equal to 0, so all you do is set each factor equal to 0, and you get x equals negative 7, x minus 4 is equal to 0, x equals 4. You're done. You can't do that with 43. These are the answers that I see. Y equals 3 and y equals negative 4. Not the case. Why not? Because it's not equal to 0, it's equal to 8 or whatever other number it is. Now here, unfortunately for you, we have to multiply this first. We have to multiply the left-hand side. Do you hear me? We got to multiply the left-hand side because we have to subtract the 8. We got to make it equal to 0. Something else I'm seeing, I'm going to erase. Y minus 3, y plus 4 minus 8 equals 0. And then y is still 3 and y is negative 4. No, it's not. You cannot do that. we have to multiply. So that gives you a y squared plus 4y minus 3y minus 12 equals 8. So if it's not equal to 0, one more time, everybody, if you listen to this again, if it is not equal to 0, your two factors, you must multiply. Now we're going to combine like terms and bring the 8 to the other side. Y squared, 4 minus 3 is plus 1y, and if we subtract another 8 from negative 12, we get negative 20 equals 0. And only now we can factor. I'm writing in red because I'm going to see Ferraris on Saturday. Lots of them. Let's factor. Which two numbers multiply to negative 20 and at the same time add to positive 1? Y minus 4, y plus 5. And now we're done and set each factor equal to 0. Get y equals 4. Y plus 5 equals 0 and get y equals negative 5. So be careful. Okay. So this is the solving the equation part. Now we're going to apply it to word problems. Are you ready? Let me take a picture of a word problem. On page C 363. Here we go again. There, it's coming. Okay, for right now. Here we go. I want to look at number 65 on page 363. I'm almost guaranteeing that you know the answer without doing an equation. But that's not the point. You have to come up with an equation. 65 says, a rectangular pen has an area of 35 square feet. So we have a rectangle, A equals 35 square feet. The width is 2 less than the length. Find the dimensions of the pen. We just did that problem. What is the answer here? Without doing algebra. The length is 2 inches more than the width, or less. What are the factors of 35?
7 and 5.
And what's the difference between 7 and 5? 2. What does it say? 2 inches less. Okay, let's come up with the formula. Well, with our equation. The area of a rectangle is length times width. So it says here that the width is 2 feet less than the length. So the dimension we absolutely know nothing about is the length, and we're going to call this x. How can we express now the width in terms of x? Well, it's less than
Okay, so x minus 2.
x minus 2. Okay, now we're going to use our equation there. Area is length times width. So length times x minus 2 width equals 35. That is the equation. You have to write the equation down. You will not get any credit if you just say 5 and 7. So now we got to solve this. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is a negative 2x. And we're going to bring the 35 over and say minus 35 equals 0. We factored this problem about 5 minutes ago. That would be x minus 7 and x plus 5. So don't say it's prime. If you said each factor equal to 0, you get x equals 7 and x equals negative 5. Well, since we are looking at the dimensions of a rectangle, they cannot be negative, so that's not a possible answer. So x equals 7 feet, and the width is 7 minus 2, which is 5 feet. And 7 and 5 indeed is 35 feet. How do you like that? Let's take a look at number, what do you want to do, 66 or 67? Nobody cares? Thank you. 67. The length of a rectangular room is 5 yards more than the width. So same thing again. The length is x plus 5, and the width we know nothing about is x. The area, what was it? The area is 300 square yards. So my equation would be x times x plus 5 equals 300. We got to multiply it out. X squared plus 5x and set it equal to 0, and that's gonna minus 300. Which two numbers multiply to negative 300 but at the same time add to 5? 20 and 15. You got that right. 20 times 15. The 15 is negative and the 20 is positive. 15 times 2 is 30, so 15 times 20. Okay. X plus 20, x minus 15. How about, did you watch basketball yesterday? Kansas State. Yeah, my team won.
You like Kansas?
Yeah. I used to live in Kansas for 6 months. I was at university. That's all they talk about in Kansas, the basketball. X equals, so set both factors equal to 0, x plus 20 equals 0, x equals negative 20. That cannot be an answer because it's negative. That means x minus 15 equals 0 and x is equal to 15 can only be the answer. Why? Because we're talking about a rectangular room. You can't have negative walls. Or can you? I don't know. 15 is 1 and the other one is 15 plus 5 is 20. So that's one type of word problem I want to talk about. The other one deals with consecutive even odd numbers, and again, I can assure you, if you know your multiplication table, you know the answer to most of these problems. But you still have to come up with an equation. Without equation, oops, what happened? Retake. Upside down. Don't be upside down again. Can't make it larger. Sorry, that's about number 61. You should have the book in front of you. 61. Now let me actually go over here. Consecutive numbers. Consecutive numbers is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are consecutive numbers. If 11 is our answer, the next consecutive number would be 12. Now, if we have a number line that's in the negative, so here's 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. If negative 3 was our number, the next consecutive number would be negative 2. We keep going one to the right. Now, but this is algebra, so we need to give them a label as a variable. So if our first number is x, then the second one would be x plus 1. The third one would be x plus 2, because they have a difference of 1. Here's x, 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2. So x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3, and so forth. Now consecutive odd numbers. And even numbers. The setup is the same, doesn't matter if you're odd or even. But if we're looking at odd numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so forth. Even numbers would be, let's start off 0, 2, 4, 6. Those are consecutive even numbers. Actually, hold on, I want to write them down here. Now, in terms of variable, if we start with the first variable, which we call x, the second one is 2 more. So that would be x plus 2, and it doesn't matter if you're odd number or even. If 0 is x, then that would be 0 plus 2, 0 plus 4. So the third value in algebraic terms would be x plus 4. Because we always go back to the first one. 1 plus 4 is 5. So x plus 4. Here we go. Okay, keep that in mind. So odd or even have the same setup. If it just says consecutive numbers, then they have a difference of 1. Now we go back to our problem. 61 says, first of all, maybe I should review that. What does product mean? When you hear the word product between two numbers, what do I need to do?
Add.
I'm glad we're reviewing that.
Multiply.
Multiply. The sum of two numbers. Sum would be plus. Difference is minus. Product is times, and quotient is division. If I could do a division problem. So if you see the word product, the product of two numbers, x times y, or 3 times 5. The product of two numbers is 15, so 3 times 5 or whatever. Product means multiplying. So 61 says, we are multiplying two numbers. And these are integers, so they can be either positive or negative. And whatever that product is, it is 42. Again, I can almost guarantee you know what the answer is without doing algebra equations. If you know your multiplication table, which two numbers multiplied and get you 42? Oh, so here you go, 6 and 7. But we need an equation here, and that comes from the product of two consecutive integers. Well, we just talked about two consecutive integers. One number is x, and the other one is x plus 1. That is your equation. Because not only 6 times 7 is 42, there's another combination that's 42. What is it? Yeah. Consecutive integers. 6 times 7 is 42. Those are consecutive numbers.
-6 and -7.
Thank you. -6 and -7 is also 42. So let's do it. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is plus x minus 42 equals 0. You don't get no credit if you don't write the equation down. X here, x there. What two numbers multiply to -42 but add to positive 1? Plus 7 minus 6. So x plus 7 equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. X is equal to -7 and x is equal to positive 6. So now we have to find the consecutive next numbers. The consecutive next numbers. That makes no sense. The consecutive number of 6 is 7. And the consecutive number to -7 is -6. You have to have both combinations here. How do you like that? People. I don't know. I had an instructor once, he always would say, if I tell this in my club, they don't believe it. I'm like, I don't have a club. Number 63, let's do one more and then we're going to review a little bit. We still have time. 63. What does it say? It says the product of two consecutive odd integers is 63. What number are we doing? 63. Oh, okay. Wow, it's too many 63s going on. I got all confused. What are we doing? Find the integers. As simple as that. And again, you know the answer. If you know your multiplication table. What is the answer?
7 and 9.
Thank you. 7 times 9 is 63, last time I checked. And they are consecutive odd numbers. I'm going to sit over here. What happened to the ladies? Okay, but what are my... I got to come up with an equation. I can't just write down 7 and 9. The first value is x. What is the next consecutive number?
Plus 2.
Well, not just plus 2, but x plus 2 equals 63. I'm still recording? Yes, I am. X squared plus 2x minus 63 is 0. Factor. I think we've done that this evening as well. Factor. There's got to be a factoring song out there, right? Let's factor. Let's do the factor. How's it called? Quadratic equation, right? Yeah. So, what goes in here? Plus 9 minus 7. X plus 9 equals 0. X is negative 9. X minus 7 equals 0. X is equal to 7. What are the next consecutive odd integers? And 9. And both of these combinations do multiply to a positive 63. And that is the conclusion of word problems. So these two word problems dealing with rectangular rooms and consecutive numbers are must-know problems. So let's review a little bit. Something I can make up is division of a binomial. Let's review this again because I'm sure we can't remember how to do that. How did we do that? For example, x squared minus 3x plus 5 divided by x minus 3. Why not? Here you go. No, we did do synthetic division. Synthetic division means we have to write out the coefficients of the trinomial. What are the coefficients of the trinomial? 1, negative 3, and 5. And we put our little bar. Remember that? It's been a while. It's been a while since we factored binomials. What goes out here? 3. Okay, first step is bring the 1 down. Why not? And then we do 1 times 3. Oh, yeah. Not good. Okay, I have an eraser. Make that a 4. Sorry about that. I mean, I know what to do, but I don't really want to have a 0 here, and we would have gotten a 0, so we make that a negative 4. One times 3 is 3. We agree on that. Then we add, and we get a negative 1. Beautiful. Then we use our -1, multiply that by 3, we get -3. Yeah, plus you who sneezed, yeah. And 5 minus 3 is 2, and we are done with our synthetic division. We have a remainder of 2. How do we write the answer now in terms of x?
X squared, x minus 1.
X, 1x minus this 1, so the 1 goes here, this -1 comes here, with a remainder of 2. And you can just write it like that, or you can write 2 over x minus 3. You're allowed to do that as well. Okay, that's called synthetic division. If you're watching this tomorrow, do it again. Stop the recording right here and do the same problem again. Okay, another one was we divided by a monomial, and I can make this up without using a book. Give me a number.
4.
Oh, yeah, okay. 48. X5, Y3 minus 24x2, y5, why not, plus,
16 x cubed y to the second power.
and hold on, minus 4xy. There you go. And what are we dividing by? That's a good question. We're dividing by 4xy. Go ahead and do it. So we have a polynomial in the numerator, and we're dividing this by a monomial. And now that I don't want to write it down again, I'm gonna... What? Jeff, hey, how you doing? I'm gonna divide everything by 4xy. I'm just gonna leave that here, like so. And now I need to go and get a book. So basically what we're doing is we're dividing out the greatest common factor, which is 4xy in this case. I made that up. Oh, I gotta talk about one more thing. What time is it? Yeah. So 48 divided by 4 is plus u. 12x what?
Take 4.
Thank you. Y squared minus 6 x y 4. Do I have to do everything? Plus
4x to the second, y minus 1.
don't you forget it. Minus what? There you go. Okay. Something I just looked at that I need to talk to you about before I almost forgot it. Now, one more time, I'm going to say it again. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 is called what? Quadratic equation. Now, if I write f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, that's called a quadratic function because it's now f of x. It's a quadratic function. Function notation. Quadratic function or quadratic equation. Now in chapter 2, we've talked about function notation. So if I give you a quadratic function in the form of f of x equals x squared minus 6x minus 7, and I ask you what is f of 0, what does that mean?
It's equal to 0.
No.
X is equal to 0.
X is equal to 0. So all your x's that you have in the original function will be replaced with 0. F of 0 means x is equal to 0. 0 squared minus 6 times 0 minus 7. So the answer is f of 0 equals -7. Yes. Basically, you just found the y-intercept. That's what we're doing. Now, how do you find the x-intercept? We've been doing that all evening, but I want you to give you the terminology. If it says, if you're being asked, find the values of x for which f of x is 0, that is fancy math language for solve for x. So in other words, this quadratic function that you got, or that I got out of the